Hello again, and welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast. PrideofDetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. You find the podcast when we download it on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Might turn into a podcast later on. For right now, I think this is going to be, for the first couple days, a Twitch exclusive, just because it's a short one. We'll see where this goes. But we have a game to play very quickly. But first, let's introduce everyone and then talk about why we're here. I'm Chris Perfett, the adequate host at Chris Perfett, Perfett. And I will not be the host for much longer because Jeremy Reisman, fearless leader, the fearless mustache at Detroit Online, will be leading the game show as we settle in here. Jeremy?
Yes, I have fun things planned for what was news that brought quite a bit of reaction, which is why we're here. But again, we're gonna save that because
we are here to talk. We are talking about Alex Anzalone.
Yes. Hey, he might be a starter in 2021. So
settled out. All right, third man here, replacing Ryan, is now Eric Schlitt at I don't remember. At Eric Schlitt on Twitter. I had to make sure because sometimes people add NFL to it. This is the first time I've got to have Eric with me on the show. Hello, Eric.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you guys today.
We're seeing each other, and Jared Goff got his contract restructured because that's what we pop on these podcasts for is contract restructures. But this one means a lot, and I feel like we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk. Jeremy's going to do the game here in a second. Why it is and isn't important. But Jeremy, actually, you know what? We might as well go to you then for the details on the contract restructure.
I mean, it's very simple. He had Jared Goff had a 25+ million salary for 2021. The Lions took 20 million of that and spread it out over a signing bonus. He gets that in his pocket right away, spread out over 4 years. So now he basically has a $5 million cap hit added to every year beyond this year, but he takes away 15 million this year in terms of cap hit. So you take your 15, you put it over the next 3 years. Which, I mean, really simple math there. You create a lot of cap space for this year. Yes, it does probably mean that there's more of a long-term commitment there. How long it is, we're probably going to talk about in a little bit. But if you've been listening to these podcasts, if you've been reading about the Detroit Lions, this was coming. Everyone knew it was coming.
We've been talking about it.
We've been talking about it. The Lions were in a tight spot with the salary cap. They probably couldn't have made more than a couple more signings really the rest of the way. And they're at 60 players. They need to get to 90. So something like this was necessary and not all that surprising, but it drew a lot of people's reactions, both positively and negatively. So I felt it was probably necessary to get the gang together here.
And the gang is here. I mean, without tipping my hand too much of the game at the game we're about to play, I'm totally fine with it. I don't know what it means for the team's commitment to Jared Goff. I do know, however, that people were panicking quite a bit because of the implications to it. But I'm also not one who is believing that Jared Goff has one bad year and suddenly we're going to throw him out the can. ESPN had a pretty good article about how things fell apart in Los Angeles, I believe, that came out today about how just, again, it was toxic by the end with him and Sean McVay. So he's going to go to a new place. The contract was a big sticking part. You've removed the sticking part of the contract, and now you're going to get to see who he is. And if the Lions have to end up owing money later on to a guy who's not that great, then so what? You'll burn that bridge when you get to it.
What about you?
Yeah, look, I like the deal too. I think it was a necessary evil, right? We spent quite a few, I don't know, probably a couple hours the other day, Jeremy and I and Andrew Cato, going over the cap, and the conclusion that we came to that there was no way that they were going to be able to go into the season and sign the draft class and fill out the rest of the roster without coming up with about $15 or $16 million. And this was the easiest way to do it. You don't have a lot invested in him in the grand scheme of things long term as far as guarantees. And so that buys you a little bit of, the Rams taking on a big portion of his guarantees were a big reason why the Lions could make this move without it having a significant impact. If they were to restructure somebody else who they already have guarantees on, it's a lot harder to pallet that because you are just, quantifying the bigger problem here, right? So it's this was the easiest move to free up the money to get them through the season, add a couple more players, and it was going to happen. It had to happen.
Yeah, and one of those other guys that were kind of a candidate for a restructure, but had a lot of those bonuses and guarantees was Trey Flowers, and it didn't seem to make a lot of sense, and especially you're talking about a guy that might have fit the defensive scheme of the previous regime a lot more than he does now. So this was a really easy, to me, it was an easy decision, but obviously there are a lot of people that either felt otherwise or felt betrayed or felt the Lions were going in the wrong direction. And we'll get to all those narratives in a second here. But it seems to me like I'm a little surprised. I shouldn't say I'm surprised by the backlash, because Lions are going to get backlash no matter what they do, I think. But it doesn't quite make sense to me that people are upset about this.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, though, and we should move on to the game in a second, but I think, again, it all comes down to recency bias. What did we recently see with Jared Goff? And it's that last year he didn't play well in Los Angeles, and people assume that's what you're getting with Jared Goff. And I don't see it like that. There's a good chance he could be bad, but like, if you've made up your mind on what Jared Goff is, you're being premature about it. And I think the risk here is worth the rewards that the Lions are getting right now, which is all the salary cap room to actually do things without just massively taking a crowbar to their roster. But Jeremy, I think it's time we get into your game. It's okay. Time to play the game.
All right, I was expecting theme music, but I don't have any prepared. So
no, we don't have Motorhead lined up here.
If you're at home, just pull up a YouTube video of the Price is Right theme and have that playing in the background. But we're going to play a very hokey / common game of buy or sell, essentially. So I'm going to have a bunch of narratives that are out there, and you two and myself are going to say whether you are buying this statement or selling this statement. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. You will be judged. You will be scored primarily by chat. Here we go. Question number 1. Statement number 1. Buy or sell? Oh, it went. Hold on. You can't see it on the screen yet. I messed it up. There we go. Buy or sell?
Already blowing this up.
Jared Goff is the locked-in starter for 2022. Not this year. Next year, locked-in starter.
Which way are we going? Eric, you want to go first?
Go for it, Eric.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm selling. I don't think it's a locked in. I think he will be, but I don't think it's locked in. And the reason is because he still there's one kind of out in that contract. And that out is that while he did take on a massive amount of guarantees and a signing bonus, the other bonus that he has attached to his contract is tradable, and it goes with him in a trade, and not necessarily the Lions would have to absorb it if they cut him, but if they trade him, then they can lose half of that guarantees next year. So they would still be on the hook for $15 million next year, but they would actually free up about $15 million next year by moving on to him. I still think there's some options moving forward. So I don't think he's locked in. I think it's about 95% that he's going to be the starter, but not locked in. Not locked in.
I'm going to buy for 2022. Not to tip my hand, and I know another question coming down the pike, but I think the Lions, if they were to take a quarterback, either A, something has gone wrong at the top of the draft and someone that they like has fallen into their hands, or someone's just completely blown them away. But I think that regardless of how he plays in 2021, we know what the state of this Lions roster is. And I think even if Goff doesn't plays like at a mediocre level, he's going to get a pass from the coaching staff, and that A, they seem locked into Jared Goff. They seem to really like what he brings to the table. They seem to really want to give him a chance. And B, those resources will come to him in 2022, where we will see a more farther along to being rebuilt roster. And I think even if you do have a rookie quarterback that you've either drafted in 2021 or 2022, maybe even if you draft him in 2021, you at least want to, like, the ideal world is giving him time to learn the system on the bench. I know everyone's in a rush to throw the new rookies into the fire right away, but it's not the way you should be doing things. And I think NFL experience will win out with his coaching staff, and Jared Goff will be the starter until he's just proven that he's incapable of being so.
I'm also going to buy here, and while Eric is right that there's a financial, way that the Lions could potentially get out of this with a trade, I don't think it makes any sense for that potential trade to happen, because for someone to take on that big, roster bonus and big contract, a $10.65 million base, he has to play considerably well in 2021. And if he plays considerably well, I don't think the Lions are going to get rid of him.
No,
I don't think it makes sense to get rid of him. The only way that happens is if they essentially get one of the top 4 quarterbacks in this year's draft, fall so much in love with him in the background of this entire year while they're not starting, and deem him ready in 2022. I don't see all that playing out. So I think he's essentially a lock. Yes, not just for this year, but for next year as well. All right.
Go on.
Yeah, let's keep it moving here. Question number 2. Very similar question. Jared Goff is a locked-in starter for 2023.
Should we go snake order draft in this?
What's that?
We want to go snake order in this, Eric?
Sure.
You just want to take it here?
No, we'll go right back to you now.
Okay, sure. I'm selling on that. I think 2023, a lot could change by then. I'm with Jeremy in the sense that I don't believe we're ever going to get to a situation where Jared Goff plays well enough that he has trade value, but not well enough that you're not committed to him as a starter for several years. But by 2023, I think the plan is right now to have a quarterback, unless Jared Goff blows your doors off, which I'm not sold. The distance makes this one harder for me to buy in versus me buying in for 2023, because at that point, all of the picks that the Rams have given the Lions are off the board by then. We're looking at whatever the next future phase of this team is going to be. And to be honest, I don't know how long it means for Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, as good as I think he has the potential to be at 2023, he'll be getting close to, I believe, 30. So I have some hesitations, and I think the picture is so cloudy I can't really buy in too much.
Eric, I feel like we already know your answer since he wasn't your locked-in starter for 2022, but I guess tell us why you're selling that he's not going to be the locked-in starter for 2023.
Yeah, it's almost that, it's almost, I think he has the same potential to be the starter in 2023 that he does in 2022, to be honest with you. He's got to progressively get better, and he has to fend off anyone that's behind him. He has to do that both years. So if he can do that in 2022, maybe he does that in 2023 as well. But yeah, I can't lock him in beyond 2021.
Yeah, and I'm selling big time on this one. I listen, this doesn't, the extension doesn't change things that much. $10 million in dead cap is all they would have to take on if they cut him after.
That's not hard to eat.
That's not. It sounds bad, but the Lions are eating a lot more than that in Matthew Stafford's contract right now. They when you combine, like, let's say Justin Coleman and Desmond Trufant, it's pretty much close to $10 million in dead cap as well. So, it's something that they could easily eat, and I would hope by then they've at least heavily considered drafting a rookie quarterback. And so I think he's probably gone by 2023, but not necessarily.
Yeah, right now I think the Lions have close to something like 30-40 million in dead cap money right now. So it's not that much of a big change, but at the same time too, and I'll go real quick on this so we can get to the next question, but I think the salary cap is going to skyrocket a little bit because of the new deal, and because teams probably haven't seen the benefit of that new deal this year yet, that they're going to try to make it up to these teams. So suddenly in the next couple of years, there will probably be a couple spikes in salary cap space. And again, if you're the Lions, if you want to eat that dead cap money, you have the room to do it.
All right.
Yeah, they have 43.2 million in dead cap right now. 43.2.
I was lowballing it.
Yeah, Stafford accounts for 19. So that's almost double what Goff would cost 2 years from now.
All right, question number 3, or scenario number 3. Buy or sell. The extension means the Lions will not draft a quarterback in 2021. Eric, let's go to you this time.
Sell. I think it's still on the table. I think as Chris said earlier, there's a value in drafting a quarterback and letting him sit. And because I think that Goff is in play to be dealt next year, I think there's potential that they look at a quarterback in this draft class. So I'm not taking it off the table by any stretch. They could, if they fall in love with the guy, they have the draft capital to go up and get him if they think he's not going to be there at 7. So there's options for them. And I think they want those options to be available so that they can make the best move to improve this team by the time 2023 comes around.
I'm going to buy it. I agree with a lot of what Eric said. I agree that, they have the draft capital move and they could fall in love with the guy. I just don't know, looking at this class, who that guy would even be. Maybe this is my personal bias tainting this a bit, but I just think after Zach Wilson, maybe Trey Lance, there's a huge drop off in what we have here. I'm not really a big believer in Justin Fields, and nor do I think, even if I was a big believer in him, that he would fit with what the Lions probably want to do. And I think this draft class is loaded with a lot of options right now that more benefit the Lions to either just pick a guy at 7th, which would be probably, a big defensive player, or one of these amazing wide receivers that are just populating the first round of the draft. Or what's more likely now in my mind is just trading back, still getting a good defensive player, or another one of those wide receivers, and just building your capital. And I think there will be guys there for the 2022 draft that probably does it. I would put the odds probably, when I say that I'm buying, I'm probably putting the odds at like, I hate odds, 75% that they don't draft a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this precludes them from drafting a quarterback, but I don't think they will. I think you have to go back to some of the first comments we heard from Dan Campbell. I think he told the Detroit Free Press, like, we need like everyone on board. If there's even a little bit of a question about any of these guys, then we're not going to draft him. He's not for us. And then he said, we need to build a foundation. I'm not sure if, like, he basically said, before we get a quarterback, before we put that in motion, we need a base of a team. And the Lions don't have that right now. And for them to go out, and it sounds like those top 4 quarterbacks, they might not get a shot at any of those guys. So it would require draft capital. And I'm not sure it's great strategy to start off a rebuild by using extra draft capital to go up and get a quarterback. Now, if one's waiting for them at 7, I still think it's on the board. So in that sense, I'm selling. I don't think this precludes them from drafting a quarterback, but I don't think they're going to be very aggressive, and I don't think necessarily they should be either.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars are just locked in on Trevor Lawrence. So it's basically like, do you like Zach Wilson? Is there someone up there willing to let go of Zach Wilson? Or how much do you really like Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields?
Fair enough. All right.
I think the fact that you've only got 1-year contracts for all the receivers you've signed so far makes that position a lot more appealing for the long-term future.
For sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Question number 4. This extension hurts the Lions' chances of trading down. This is one I've seen floated across Twitter a couple times. Eric, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm selling that too. Look, the team sitting right behind you is Carolina, and they need a quarterback. And if there is a quarterback sitting there and someone wants to get ahead of Carolina, that's Detroit. So I do think they're still, even if people don't think quarterback is an option for Detroit, it's very much an option for Carolina. That keeps the Lions trade options open.
Yeah, I'm selling this notion as well that this hurts the Lions being able to trade down. Again, we've seen how starved teams are for quarterbacks. We just need to go over to Chicago and look at one there too. But they are not alone. As he said, like right behind Detroit is Carolina, right above Detroit. Like there are, and not even for quarterbacks, but I think there is enough interesting pieces near the top of the draft. I could even see someone wanting to trade up if you're interested in one of these wide receivers right now. If you're not moving up that much, if we get through to like the Bengals and they've 1 wide receiver, 2 wide receivers are off the board, and like say, I don't know, the Broncos or the Cowboys want to trade up to get a wide receiver, I could still see that happening too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think Sewell. I was going to say I think Sewell's probably
yeah.
the bigger target here too. He's because if the quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4, Sewell's sitting there at 5, and all of a sudden he becomes very appealing.
Yeah, I just think I've been in my mocks. I have Miami snapping up Sewell though, because I feel like they're going to commit to Tua and they could use the protection that Sewell would bring. But if he goes past Miami, he's anyone's game.
I just want to say I'm very proud of our chat on Twitch and YouTube because it is unanimously sell on this one. I don't know how this narrative became a thing. I don't understand it at all. I don't understand.
It's some doom and gloom, man.
Even if the Lions are tipping their hand right now and saying, listen, we just committed to Jared Goff for our future quarterback. Like, we're not taking a quarterback. How does that change anything at all?
It doesn't.
Because like you said, I think Carolina's the key piece here. People are going to try to jump over. If the Lions want to trade down, they don't want the appearance of we're going to take a quarterback because everyone's going to be like, okay, we got to jump Detroit. Like, that's how that works. So, I mean, I just don't get it at all. This doesn't affect anything there. Yes, maybe it's better if the Lions have their intentions a little bit more secretive, but in terms of trading down, I don't see this impacting it at all. I don't get it.
Yeah, this is some doom and gloom. This is state secret stuff, and I hate it. I've always hated it.
You must have loved the Patricia regime. They didn't.
How do you think I feel about the Patricia regime?
I shouldn't have even brought it up. That's how I feel. You feel. All right, my final buy sell. Buy or sell. This restructure is a sign that the Lions are trying too hard to win now at the expense of future cap space.
No. Sell. I know where this comes from. People have fallen in with the love of the idea of tanking. And to a degree, I understand where it comes from. The idea is in the mind of a fan or a fan-oriented media, which includes local talk radio, which includes all these Twitter accounts that are for fans who are trying to be super fans. It comes back to this. You want to try to front load your misery because you believe that by doing so, you then min-max your returns later on. The reality of it is that doesn't work. First off, if like you're applying an NBA model to tanking by the idea that you have to just deliberately suck to move up in your draft position to properly tank. That's a different sport. Someone pointed this out to me on Twitter the other day. Tanking in the NBA moves you a late first round draft pick in the NBA is a guy who's going to start off the bench and you're going to maybe develop him into a rotational player, maybe into a starter if you're lucky later on. So you have to draft in the top half of the NBA draft. If you're picking in the just around 16 or 20, even 20 in the NFL draft, you're still getting a guy you expect to be a starter. Like the idea that you're somehow missing out by winning 2 more games and you're instead going to finish at 7-10 versus 2-15 is ludicrous. And also it creates problems down the road because you've probably blown up a lot of your roster to achieve that low quality of play, which means it's then going to be harder to get back to the rebuild later on. So I don't buy into it. It's not respected in the NFL. It doesn't work in the NFL. It's much better to go and get more picks so that you have you want quantity, not just your quality for your first, your top overall pick. And we've seen teams go other ways that don't involve just blowing yourselves up to get the quarterback of the future.
By the way, I want to give you a little appreciation there for adjusting your projected records to a 17-game schedule. That was very sad.
I know what's coming next year. I'm not falling into that trap.
Eric, what are your thoughts on this narrative out there?
Yeah, I'm selling the fact that they're selling their future by investing too much now. This move with Goff was a move to facilitate them getting through this season. It wasn't to free up cap room so they can spend a whole bunch of money now to try and win now. This is a logistical move so that we can add players and give at least the impression of being competitive right now so that we can evaluate our players properly. And then all of a sudden, half of our free agency class isn't going to be around next year because they're all on 1-year contracts, right? So they're going to have a lot more money next year. And that it doesn't matter what happened with the Goff contract. They haven't overspent in free agency, which is a bit surprising. It's a bit of an adjustment for us to have to try and take on that not overspending early, right? So I don't think they've done anything this offseason, including the Goff restructure, that has pointed to them, selling the future for now.
Yeah, and I was kind of throwing numbers out there on Twitter as well. I'm definitely selling this narrative completely. They haven't spent more than $5 million in cap space on a single player in 2021, new player or re-signing. None of them have more than a $5 million cap hit, other than Jared Goff. And listen, if you have a problem with his restructure, your problem really was with trading for him in the first place, because he had a big contract. He was going to take on a big cap hit this year and probably next year either way. It would have been a $10 or $15 million cap hit if they cut ties with him next year before the restructure.
15.
Now it's an additional $5 million. 15. Now it's an additional $5 million. You're talking about small hits in the future. You're adding $5 million per year in the future. That's not something that's going to hold this team back. And in terms of, using the $15 million this year to get a bunch of 1-year deals, $3 million signings, listen, you're just building a team. You first of all, you need the numbers. You can't go into training camp with 70 guys. By the end of it, you're going to be depleted. You're going to be tired. You're going to have guys that are injured. You won't have a full 53-man squad. It's going to be ridiculous. Second of all, like Eric said, you need at least a competitive roster to evaluate everyone who's here, to help your young players. If you want to see a guy like Tracy Walker, turn things around and potentially show something for the future, you can't place a bunch of crappy players around him. Same with your rookie class. You really want to surround your rookie class with a bunch of crappy players and go into December at 2-13 and be like, isn't this fun? Don't you want to spend the rest of your life? This is the time that these guys are the most impressionable, which is why I think the Michael Brockers trade was amazing. You get a culture guy in there that's going to be great, that isn't going to be throwing a fit in December when the team is not in the playoff hunt. And so you need to have, this team has just pounded the table about culture. And if you are just throwing everything away in year one, who's going to want to stay, including the coaches?
Yeah, guys, and
I want to come.
Who's going to want to come? I've talked with former players, and they all say guys talk. The guys talk, and they know when a team's throwing them under the bus. And I know fans are in love with the idea. It's like, hey, what if the Lions had lost the Atlanta game last year? We'd be picking at 3 and not 7. Okay, so what? Like, at the end of the day, so what? Like, we can do this constantly. Football is not there. There's only 17 games at the time, 16. Yes, I keep that in mind. It's harder to really game how many wins, your win-loss record, by tanking than it is for a 60-some 70-game season like it is in basketball. It's hard to do that. And again, to do that properly, you have to you have to blow up your culture. You have to blow up your roster. You have to throw your young talent under the bus. You have to get a bunch of mercenary guys. And I guess the big lie for me is, okay, but what does this why is this coming up? It's because we restructured Jared Goff's contract and the Lions signed Jamal Williams. That's gonna be what's moving the needle, that suddenly the Lions are somehow gonna have a delta of 2 wins out of that. I can't buy that. That's just not realistic.
I just the main complaint is the kicking the can down the road, right? That
right.
That old phrase, they're kicking the $20+ million cap hit of Jared Goff down the road, and they're going to have to pay dividend, or they're going to pay the piper in the future. And that's where, but like we said, it's $5 million a year. Chill out. It's fine. Sorry, Eric, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. No, the thing I was going to say, as with the tanking, is that even if you're at 3, there's still, you have to pick the right guy. Look at the quarterback situation 4 years ago when the Bears trade up to get Trubisky, and then Mahomes and Watson go later, right? there's going to be teams that miss on players, and there's going to be teams that hit on players, and it's more about do you have the front office that's going to hit on the right guy, than do you have the wrong front office that's picking at 2 or 3? You know what I mean? So there's a lot more to worry about than exactly where they are in the order itself.
Yeah, and again, the NBA draft, if you're in the lottery, there's like 2-3 guys at the top of the draft that is like, you can't miss this guy. And because there's only a few positions to play in the NBA, they're all good. For the NFL, like, unless I think most people are doing this in service to a quarterback, but as we talked about, Sewell is another massive prize waiting at the top of this draft. There's wide receivers all over the top 10. You're not just like, it's about being able, as you say, Eric, to scout properly and to identify who works best for your system.
You can tell Ryan's not on the podcast, by the way, because we've been talking about the top of the draft the entire time, and one name has not been uttered yet. And I'm not going to be the one that does it, but also maybe considered a prize by some people.
Pile kits.
maybe. Well, I don't really have any more questions here. We can talk briefly if you want about the 2 signings that the Lions made today, or we can throw it to chat. Actually, I'm going to let you guys decide. Think about it while I talk about some alerts that happened during that 30-minute.
Real quick, though, before we do that, just in case this does turn into a podcast, let me close with the podcast segment of it, shall we?
Yes.
This has been the Pride of Detroit PODcast. I'm Chris Perfett. Find me on Twitter at Chris Perfett, PERFETT. Jeremy Reisman, the Fearless Mustache, is on Twitter at Detroit Online, and Eric Schlitt at Eric Schlitt. That's Eric with a K, SCHLITT. Knocked down the first try. That's what I like to do. We'll see you guys next time. Go Lions. All right, now we can go on to your alerts.
All right, Darth Hippo with the 13 months subscribed to the channel. Darth, you're a legend. I think you said you left already, but if you're watching the VOD, we appreciate you. Thank you for the 13 months. D. Huber with the 4-month subscription as well. Detroit Joe K with the follow, and Maurice Demers with the subscription over there on YouTube. We appreciate you over on YouTube as well. Let me make sure that we're giving you guys the appropriate
Zach is busting my balls in chat, by the way.
He does that.
Just nonstop.
First, he tormented you with the 4-hour cut, and now he's slamming you in the Twitch chat.
He's not slamming me about the mask, though. I've seen some people slamming me about the mask.
Is there Kazee news? What happened with Kazee? Someone on YouTube said there's Kazee news. I don't have Twitter open. What did I miss? They didn't sign him, did they?
No, I don't think they have. I think it's just, is it still the visit? No, hold on.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think I just saw a PPF. Line good. We were signed. No, that's someone else.
Ain't nothing yet. We good.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, do you guys want to touch a little bit on Anzalone and Damian Ratley? I don't know how much.
Anzalone's got really good hair.
Yes, that is true. Facts.
We cover.
I mean, Anzalone's a guy that I think we all circled at the beginning of free agency as a guy that could be here simply because of the
more Saints guys,
connection.
Man.
And he was mostly a starter over there in New Orleans, but who did they trade? They traded for someone mid-season in New Orleans, and it kind of boxed Anzalone out of a starting role towards the end of
I think it was I'm pulling up, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Was it
He's always been kind of a part-time starter because of injuries or competition from other players. Right. But that's fine. I think he's going to be a part-time starter here too. When we look at like how the Rams have operated their front seven, when they look to shadow the Rams front, like we've talked about previously in a bunch of our articles, that off the ball linebacker 2 is going to only be off the ball half the time. And he's going to be on the line of scrimmage about half the time as well. So this is a role where we could see Anzalone playing 50% of the time off the ball, and the other 50% could be Julian Okwara playing on the line of scrimmage. So right. This is why I like this, because you can play that kind of second, linebacker role obviously the pass rusher too, but you have that second kind of off the ball role that can move around. You have 2-3 guys that can fill into that. Even though Anzalone's probably the only one right now on the roster that can play off the ball next to Jamie Collins.
Right. Yeah, and that's they still have to do some work there because if either of those guys gets injured, I guess it's Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Is that the plan?
Or Sean Dion Hamilton, but yeah, they gotta draft a guy, right? There's plenty of day 2, early day 3 linebackers that have athleticism and speed that are worth developing, and if you're only depending on how many linebackers they want to put on the field at a time and how many off the ball. There's plenty of guys that they can look at. I've kind of been looking at like that second, third round pick, or maybe even that first, third round pick. You could get a linebacker that can play a key role for you and could be a potential future guy that could start, in 2 years from now when you don't have Anzalone and Jamie Collins on the roster anymore.
And Zach Snyder on top of it in the chat. Quan Alexander is the guy that the Saints traded for in the middle of the season.
That was who. Yeah. I remember the name from somewhere.
And then real quick, the other I think the other thing of note, because everyone seems to be obsessed with the compensatory pick game this offseason, his contract, at least on the surface as we know it so far, only $1.75 million, which means 1 year $1.75 million, which means he won't factor into the compensatory pick. It's not a big enough contract to figure into that thing. So Lions, I think, are still sitting at 3 compensatory picks. I think a 3rd rounder and 2 fifths.
Yep, 2 fifths.
So that hasn't changed.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
When I looked at the offseason free agency charts, I had Anzalone ahead of Jared Davis. But look at the pay difference between the two of them. It really is, and it's got to be the injury history with Anzalone that's really dropped him this far, because Jared Davis has all the athleticism in the world, but the production just hasn't been there, and it's been there for Anzalone. So it's very interesting. The contract, by being patient and waiting, you're finding much more affordable contracts right now with Anzalone and some of these other guys that the contracts have ended up being very team friendly.
Yeah, I Robert Saleh might have a little bit too much confidence in himself over there because I don't know, that Jared Davis contract doesn't make a ton of sense to me. He gets a $2.5 million signing bonus, I believe, and then his $3 million base salary is guaranteed. A $5.5 million cap hit that is unremovable. If they cut him in training camp, that's a $5.5 million in dead cap there. So
Jets.
Very, very interesting move there. They're literally handing him a bigger cap hit than any Lions signing or re-signing this year.
And we're worried about spending for that's going to screw up the future. But anyway, you want to talk about Damian Ratley?
Sure.
Because I've got some notes on him.
Okay, why don't you kick it off then?
So Damian Ratley, I know he was. Damn it! I just closed up his college. Well, I closed up his
A&M.
college stats.
Texas A&M.
No, I know he's
Texas
from Texas
A&M.
A&M. I know
Okay.
he was a round 6 pick. He's an interesting signing. He's basically going to be a speed guy. I know our guy Kent Lee Platty was once again quick with the RAS, which is going to be what a lot of people are going to point to. I think he scored like a 9.03 on the RAS. But, this is a guy who's been kind of kicked around a little bit. He was drafted late by the Cleveland Browns, but he didn't really do too much with them. I think he only played, 6 games in about 2 years with them. Didn't really. I think he was like 65% completion rate in his first year, but it went down from there. But he hasn't been targeted. He only got about 40 targets in Cleveland. He goes to the Giants last year, and they really don't do much with him. This kind of seems like a late round draft pick that's kind of falling out of favor. Guys just don't seem to know what to do with him. But I think we talked, Jeremy, about this idea that, they kind of blew up a lot. The Lions blew up a lot of the wide receiver core, and especially when it comes to just, speed and special teams guys. Are going to have Khalif Raymond, but I think Ratley could potentially be someone you try out for kick returns as well. But at the same time, it's good depth. It's one of these guys where, again, you're kind of putting them on a prove it deal for Ratley. This would be his 3rd team in 4 years, which if you're a 6th-round draft pick, you don't really get too many other options besides, you don't get many more chances besides that. So it fits in line with that. They want a lot of wide receivers right now, but they're not really ready to commit to anyone until they can really prove it to them.
Yeah, I think that's all this is they're creating competition at that wide receiver 3-4 level. And with a guy like this, a guy that John Dorsey knows because he drafted him. He was the one that drafted him
in Cleveland. Yeah.
And yeah, it's all about speed, which is what Jared Goff is comfortable with. And so they're just kind of I think they're throwing a bunch of guys against the wall here and seeing what sticks and seeing, who can win these camp competitions. And, nothing's very exciting at the moment. And like Eric said earlier in the show, like wide receiver is still 100% in play in the draft. They don't have a clear number one right now. And so this is just a bunch of, kind of, like I said, 2, 3, 4 level wide receivers where maybe you hope that they can see some sort of turnaround here. You're giving these guys an opportunity where they probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. So that's where the motivation from them comes in. The motivation for you is that they're cheap, they're speedy, they're athletic. And, I mean, that maybe you can make the argument that they have all the tools. They just haven't been given the opportunity yet.
I think it's basically they're starting to add receivers that have speed, but also a little bit of variety in what they can do, right? Perryman and Williams are your typical wide receiver 2s, and Ratley and Raymond, those guys are more like wide receiver 4, maybe even wide receiver 5s. But Raymond is more of a typical slot guy that has punt return and kick return potential, better punt return. But then Ratley is a guy who can be a deep threat, but he can also be like a gadget type guy where he can bubble out into some screens and you can use him on some end rounds or something like that. So there's a little bit more variety in the type of player that he is. He's not a guy who's going to challenge, in my opinion, for like even wide receiver 3. I think he's either 4 or 5 if he's on the roster at all. And that's fine to add those guys because the fact that they're starting to, show some variance in the skill set that they're targeting is a good sign because they're not just going to put 4 guys out there that have 4.3 speed and just have them all run 9s, right?
Right.
You've got to have, they're starting to spread some variety in that. And that's an important aspect of rounding out that wide receiver room.
There's also the fact that, there's always overcorrections when guys come in and try to change the nature of a team. And we've gone from a lot of very slow wide receivers to a lot of guys with some SEC speed on their side. We'll see how that all kind of plays out.
By the way, there is a small amount of DeMonte Kazee news apparently. I didn't see it before, but Pro Football Talk is reporting that he's moving on to the visit to the Lions after the Cowboys meeting. I think the Cowboys meeting got pushed back a day, so now it looks like DeMonte Kazee visit is on to Detroit for I presume to be tomorrow.
I thought all these visits were still remote, that they were just like doing Zoom calls or
Not
something.
anymore.
No,
Nope.
No. Okay.
We're
back to that. Okay, cool.
Norm here.
That's fine.
Let me also catch up on some alerts here. Brandon Walsh over on YouTube did a $1.99 super chat, says overdosing on Kool-Aid, might have to go to the ER. Take care of yourself, Brandon. Hydrate. Watch some 2020 Jared Goff film. That'll maybe flush some Kool-Aid from your system.
Settle down. I still think Goff is walking into a better, like, I don't know what Stafford's going to be with the Rams right now, but I mean, I think at the very least Goff is going to be getting us some pieces that if they come together properly and you don't just keep shifting them around, the offensive line in Detroit might be up there with the Rams, okay. Maybe a little better.
We have to figure out what exactly they're doing on the right side.
Yeah, that's the big if. Yeah. No, I mean, I've been telling people that left side of the line that's as solid as what the Lions have.
Also, really quick, Zack Snyder with the 9-month subscription. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thank you for Justice League.
And Fallen, thank you for the 6 months both of you using your Prime sub, which is a great reminder that if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can link it to your Twitch account and subscribe to our Twitch page for free every single month. You get 1 free subscription, so you can use it here, you can use it somewhere else, but please use it.
Robo saying, "I need my man Ryan here to bad talk them Bears." Man, you missed me yesterday. Bad talking the Bears, real bad.
They haven't done anything bad today, so they can.
Not yet.
They're little no accidents. One day they've got a one count on their.
The night is still young, Jeremy. The night is still young. I don't know. I think we've seen enough excitement from the Bears for a couple weeks. Maybe enough excitement around the whole league. I know for me, doing some other shows, the Isaiah Wilson thing was some taking up a lot of room. And someone asked me on Twitter, and I might as well say it here: the Lions should not take a chance on Isaiah Wilson. If any of your friends are telling you, "Hey, should the Lions take a chance on Isaiah Wilson?" gently tell them no. Because I don't think Isaiah Wilson's going to get a chance anywhere else with anyone ever anything.
I would say don't gently tell them. Shake them.
No, shake them. Shake them hard.
Profusely and say, what are you talking about? This guy didn't last 2 weeks on a new roster in April or in March. In March.
He didn't even get to the Dolphins properly. He was like late for team meetings and late for physicals, and then is like dancing on top of a car sipping lean or some crap. And now I think there was like something that came up that he got arrested in January back in Georgia for like running for like driving off away from the cops at 140 miles an hour, like with drugs. Like, bad news. Stay away. Stay away.
Oh, and I didn't even see this, but the Bears apparently did sign Damian Williams today. That was that's
okay.
That's a solid move. I kind of was hoping the Lions might go in that direction.
That's not bad.
At least Andy Dalton can hand the ball off.
There you go. I'll take if you guys have a little bit, I'll take a couple of questions here, but I would like to bounce off here pretty quick because I only allotted 45 minutes for both of you here, so you're both working overtime at this point.
Oh, wonderful. That means overtime pay.
Yeah, sure. Talk to SB Nation about it. Robo1207 wants to know what Eric's top choice at 7 is right now.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
No,
geez. I think Sewell might be the most talented non-quarterback in this class, but I also don't think he's going to be there. So from a realistic standpoint, the receivers make a ton of sense to me. I have them right now, Chase, Waddle, Smith. I really think Waddle could be the favorite based on look at the way that they're approaching adding to the room with speed. Like, you're not going to find a guy who is a combination of speed, athleticism, the ability to run routes, separate. Although he's got everything that you want to help Jared Goff be successful. You don't have a lot of long-term investment in the wide receiver room. So there's a lot of appeal. I could see them double dipping at wide receiver. I could see Waddle slipping right in and playing. I don't know if that's exactly my personal choice. I still kind of prefer Chase, but kind of gut feeling today, it seems like Waddle, if I'm doing a mock draft, it's probably going to be Waddle for me.
All right, last one, I think, before we call it here. Cordier asks, is Goff after the 2020 season a better quarterback than Stafford was after 2023? Feels like Stafford greatly improved on 2014 onwards, but Goff at this point is the equivalent of Stafford in 20.
Can you give me the first part of that question again? Just
basically,
no, I found it here.
Is there a chance that Goff sees the kind of career alignment, career improvement that Stafford did in his young career? Because Stafford had the big 2011 season, but we definitely saw a change once Jim Caldwell got here, right? So is there a chance that we see? I mean, Jared Goff is young. That's the one thing that I think people always forget is like Goff is 4 or 5 years into his career.
Yeah, he's 26.
Matthew Stafford in 2020 was a very different quarterback than Matthew Stafford 5 years into his professional career. So
yeah, listen,
is there a chance we see that sort of kind of progression in Jared Goff?
I think so, in the sense that I feel like, again, he's going to have a decent offensive line in front of him, and that's not something Stafford really had until later into his transformation. He also had a lot of, I think Anthony Lynn's system is probably a better fit for Jared Goff than than the systems that Scott Linehan and Joe Lombardi were throwing at Stafford. Probably even better than the one that he had with Jim Bob Cooter once people kind of got some tape on that.
How dare you?
Jim
Bob Cooter for president.
Like, I think we've talked about this before. You looked at the one good year that Goff had. It was when he had a complimentary run game. And look, I don't think Jared Goff has the arm to really compete at the end of the day with Stafford, but I still think he's someone who can kind of control I don't want to say game manager, because I don't think game managers exist anymore. He can control the field. He can make the quick passes you need to in the modern NFL. He can read a defense, and I think he needs to work on one thing, which is kind of pocket presence, which, I mean, to be fair, it's the same issue Stafford had to work on for a while. Like, for whatever reason, Goff just doesn't see stuff coming off his blind side. Stafford would be kind of careless with the ball sometimes when he steps up in the pocket. I think Goff has that potential to do that. I don't know if I don't give him a better chance to be what Stafford's transformation was, but I think with the personnel around him and the fact that he's just going to get better wide receivers as this rebuild goes on, I feel like Goff does have a good chance that his later 20s could be transformational.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, look, the fact that he's done it before means that the potential's there for him to improve again, right? This isn't a Trubisky situation where we've seen obvious flaws in his game that he has no intention of changing. Like, and he just looks stuck in it. This is a totally different type of quarterback that you have in Goff. But Goff needs help. That's part of it. Stafford didn't always need help, which is what made Matthew Stafford so great. But Goff needs three main things. He needs a running game that is at least present. Right? They don't have to be elite. They just have to be present. Okay. And when he didn't have it with the Rams, he struggled. You're going to get that. You can look at the offseason attention the Lions are investing in the running game. You should get that out in the running game. The second thing he needs is a competent offensive line that can keep him upright, because, as Chris said, his pocket presence is a little suspect and he doesn't have the mobility to escape it. So you need to get him a pass blocking offensive line. Again, they're not a bad offensive line. They're probably in the top half of the league as they are now, and there's potential for them to even improve this depending on who they add. And the third thing you need is wide receivers that can separate. And they're adding a lot of these guys with speed because they can separate. So they're building this team to give him things that he needs to be successful. Now, you still have to do it on the field, but there's an awareness, I think, in how this team is being developed, and that is to try and be strong in the three areas that Goff needs.
I think Jared Goff's time in Los Angeles is going to be fascinating to look back on in 10 years, because the way it breaks down is the first 2 years when the Rams offense was dynamic, it was new, it was tearing people apart. Who got the credit?
Todd Gurley wasn't a potato.
Who got the credit? Sean McVay.
When
everything went to shit in the past 2 years, who got the blame?
Jared Goff. Funny how that works in the NFL. I really have to encourage people. It's on ESPN from Lindsay Theory. She does have kind of an inside the locker room about, it's called Why the Sean McVay Jared Goff Partnership Fell Apart for Los Angeles Rams. And it's just talking about, again, like near that end in 2020 when McVay and Goff are basically like, McVay was shouting at Goff at the end. It's like, they're having heated talks back and forth about that. And when no matter how good you are, when your relationship with your coach, if you're a quarterback, falls apart like that, there's just there's no way that good play comes out of that. There's not, because as the quarterback, you're supposed to be the main focal point for the coach to put, to put the play into action. I don't believe quarterbacks are the end all be all Jordan-esque winners that some people want them to be, but they are important in that they are the first line from the coach to the offense. And when you have a cool hand Luke failure to communicate, it's going to impact everyone. And as Jeremy says, the one who's going to take that blame first and foremost is going to be the quarterback. I think Stafford, he succeeded in spite of his coaches. I think Goff, when his coach and him, their relationship soured, it took down both together. But again, most of the blame fell on Goff.
All right, I think we're going to call it at that. Thank you to Eric. Thank you to Chris for joining us. Thank you for all of you to joining us. You on Twitch, we are going to go raid someone. Let's just do Reno. We did his wife yesterday. Let's keep it in the fam here. So if you're here on Twitch,
I was gonna say Ruvi is cooking too.
Ooh, that's true. We'll do Reno for now. Keep the Lions thing going here. Go say hi to Reno. If you're on YouTube, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the super chat, Brendan, again. Thank you for everyone for hanging out with us on a Wednesday. We might do a mock draft this week. I think we might save it for next week. But as always, make sure you're subscribed to Twitch and YouTube so you get notifications every time we go live. Don't miss things. And then join us on Saturdays for the Locker Room with me, Eric, and Ryan. Download the Locker Room app now if you have an Apple device, and follow Pride of Detroit so that you get notifications there. But until then, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you soon.